Okay, what we'll do today, okay, so this is our next guest on Startup Masterclass. And this is Guy. He's joining us from a company called Guesty. And today we brought our marketing team here to speak with Guy. I just did the introduction, so we spoke about it, and Guy's very interested in the program. And next, I'll turn over to Aldo, who has some specific questions about the marketing process and finding product market fit based on Bukit Vista's experience. And today, we hope Guy will be the right person to answer some of these questions. Okay, I'll turn it over to you, Aldo. Oh, I forgot. But beforehand, let me introduce everybody. Guy, we have Rizal and Gani. They're in Jogja. They're the two gentlemen over in the center panel. We have Aldo, who is wearing the Malioboro Street, which is he's here in Bali, and we have Haspi, who is one of our marketing interns. Thank you, Haspi. He's coming from Singapore. All right, I'll turn it over to Aldo for the first questions. Over to you, Aldo.
Okay.
Aldo.
Hi, Mr. Barner. So thank you, Jim, for introducing me to Mr. Barner. So yeah, my name is Aldo. We're part of content and marketing team here in Bukit Vista. So and first of all, I think I want to thank you for coming to our discussion and your willingness to talk with us. And my question will be like around the finding the product market fit, especially in your experience at Guesty, because it seems like Guesty and Bukit Vista has the same industry. So I think we can find something inspiring from your experience that we can apply at our company. So I think for the first question, I will ask, what product did you develop? Did you manage on Guesty?
So on Gasty, I managed a couple of lines of products. It was the mobile app, as well as a product directed for property owners. So Gasty, if not everyone is familiar, is a short-term rental property management software. So I managed a couple of other products, but those were the main lines of products. Obviously, Gasty has about 15 or maybe even 20 product lines. So I mostly did those two.
Do you have like specific products that you can mention with us? Like what products did you manage? Sure.
Excuse me, can you repeat that?
Uh, can you mention like the exact product that you were creating at Guesty that you can share with us?
Yeah, so the main product was a mobile app that basically recreates a lot of the behavior from the web app. So before I joined, Guesty was a web app only, and one of my first tasks was to recreate it as a mobile app.
Okay. Okay. So from that product, sir, how is your journey on finding this product market fit of the product, and how do you define a market fit for a product?
Um, I guess, well, about product market fit. So they say that if you have product market fit, you just know it, and if you're not sure and if you're not sure if you have it, then you probably don't. Or another way to put it is you have product market fit when you have on a regular basis a lot of customers coming back and engaging and asking for things, and even if they're not happy with everything you're doing, the mere fact that they're talking to you and complaining about the fact that they're not happy about it is already a good sign that what you're doing actually fits their needs and that they need more of it. So I guess that would be my definition of product market fit. Whenever you have repeated, just repeated customers using your product over and over again over the course of a couple of months, then you just know that you're there. For example, for that product that I created, we started off by just kind of mapping uh, everything that we could put in it and trying to figure out what are the things that are very special that we can add for mobile behavior. not just kind of taking things from the web app, but also thinking about the extra value that comes with mobile devices, and stuff that we can do with it. And then it was basically a matter of talking to a bunch of people, actually going out and meeting people, talking to them online, showing them a few of the options, showing them mock-ups of a few designs that we had in mind. Kind of a lot of times when you start something new, the first few features are kind of obvious, and you want to just try them out and see if your assumptions are correct. If you know the market well enough, often enough they will be, with a few changes, obviously. But that's basically what we did. We mapped, we thought about the added value, and then we prioritized, mocked up, and went out to customers.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's very valuable journey of how to find a product market fit. But I
Mhm.
think you also mentioned like a complaint is a good sign of that we're going to create to have the product market fit. Why do you think it is a good thing, a good sign for a good product market fit, sir?
It, like, are you specifically referencing like Matrix or stuff like that, or just in general?
I think in general and also your methods on like finding the product market fit.
Yeah, in general, I think it's basically what I mentioned. It's just like when you feel that what you're building attracts customers, attracts consistent. I think consistency is the key, but consistent good feedback and usage from people, then you fit, and it needs to be with like usually with a very very specific segment of market. Like obviously now Guesty has and grown a lot, and now addresses many segments of the market. Back then it was a few years ago, but Guesty concentrated mostly on United States and really relatively small companies, short-term rentals in cities, not rural areas. So for that very specific segment, which was still pretty big, um, we just whenever we got customers of that type, in a very large percentage of the time, they would just understand what we're doing. They would get a lot of benefit from day one from the product. And just you talk to them and you understand that you're building what they need. And again, they have a lot of complaints. They have a lot of feature requirements and feature requests, and stuff that they just have to have in order to continue. And they might yell at you and they might threaten to leave, etc., etc. But that's actually all very good signs that you are interesting enough for them to feel so strongly about what you're doing.
Okay, maybe to do.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Aldo. Guy, I've got a question. So, if you're working on product and you're working on these big teams, and you have like maybe a stack of people, right? You've got marketing people, you've got people developing the product. How you believe you created a great product, right? And your marketing hasn't found the right audience for you. Um, how much did that take into account of product market fit? Like is it a matter of, because sometimes it feels like a chicken and the egg, right? Like is my product great and I just haven't found the right audience, or is
Mhm.
it like the audience is fine but the product isn't great, or do you kind of just keep on iterating through different audiences until you find one that actually clicks with
Uh,
you? Or
that's a really good question. Um, my answer to that will be, as a product manager, um, that finding the market is, in a very large way. It's a group effort, but at the end of the day, as a product manager, it comes from above. I mean, it's usually it's more of the CEO slash VP marketing or business development people to kind of do the proper research to understand that as a product manager you have a lot of say in it. You might do experiments, you might suggest new markets that you think might be relevant and to suggest those experiments. I wouldn't say like if you're building something and you think the marketing team just they didn't find the right audience, that to me mostly indicates a miscommunication between departments, because it means that you build something not in coordination with your marketing team. You build something that you thought was needed for a specific audience. They thought something completely different, and now they are trying to follow your track. And I mostly think it should be the other way around. You should be kind of following their tracks because they are the ones getting the leads into the platform. And if you're not building the product that they need, you will get very bad results. But to me, that's more on me that I haven't built the right product for them uh, than on them finding the right product, the right market for my product. And also, more than just me or them, it's mostly about communication and making sure that we are aligned about what we think are the correct markets for the product.
Okay. All right. Very good. Back to Aldo.
Okay, thank you, Jing, for the questions, and I think yeah, I think it's a very relevant question, and I think my next question will be uh, finding product market fit is always like hearing what customer wants and fulfilling what they need. So, but in reality, that there are so many customers and there are so many needs that we need to fulfill, and how do you define like the ideal customer for satisfying the product, and how did you find the ideal that ideal customer?
It really depends. It really depends on so many factors for where you are as a company. Um, so when you are just starting off, for example, you want to build the what's called like the minimum viable product, like the MVP, and the MVP is missing a lot of functionality that the main market will require. And because it's missing so many functionalities, the ideal customer will need to have two things. Basically, they will need to have, or three things actually. So, one, they will need to have a problem big enough for them not to care about the missing functionality. B, they will need to have a specific need so that none of the missing functionalities are actually blockers for them. Um, for example, let me try to give an example. Let's say that you are building Dropbox, and Dropbox has, like, you're building a new Dropbox, and Dropbox obviously has a lot of functionality. For example, they have a lot of permissions and settings. They have teams, they have admins, they have permissions per file. They have the option to sync um, across many platforms, across iOS, Android, web, desktops. You have to sync everything across many places, and they have a lot of other functionalities. But your ideal customer at the start, when you're just building something, so the MVP will probably be just some sort of management, like let's say it's a web-based document management system with some sort of edge over Dropbox, but without that user management system. So you want something, you want to have a customer to start with that has a problem that Dropbox does not solve, but your product does solve, and that problem should be big. That's one thing. Second, your ideal initial customer will be someone that doesn't care about permissions or doesn't have iOS. They only have desktop and Android, for example, on their team. So they don't care about iOS. So the MVP doesn't include that. And then you will also have a customer that at the early stages that is what's called an early adopter. You want to have someone that understands technology, that is interested in having an edge over other people in their field, and they are willing to sacrifice quality or features or support or other things that they might expect from a bigger company. So that would be an ideal customer for a very early stage company that is finding their initial customers. For a more mature product where you are interested in scaling, for example, you want to find even someone that is almost the opposite of an early adopter. You want to find someone that is a lot more mainstream because you want to validate. Like once you have a good product and you want to scale, you want to make sure that you have someone that represents that market. And as I said, that's completely in collaboration with the marketing team for those reasons exactly. You want to understand what is the marketing strategy for the company. If the marketing strategy, like the company is already based very well in the EU and they are trying to get into the United States, then your ideal new customer will be someone from the States. If they're trying to grow into bigger companies, then your ideal new customer will be a big company. It's basically a matter of validating the assumptions that you are currently testing. So whenever you're building something, you have an assumption. Eric Ries talks about this a lot in his book, The Lean Startup. So whenever you're building anything, yeah, obviously, another mention for Eric Ries here, but whenever you're building, you're trying to validate an assumption, and that customer should be the one that validates that assumption, basically.
Over to Dick.
Thank you, Aldo. Mr. Guy, I have another question, and this is related to this idea of finding this fit. And the way I understand it is, Guesty went to the U.S. and they went to Europe. At any point, did you see that like is it a little bit like finding gold, right? There's going to be a certain audience that approaches with a certain reason during a certain time, and you're going to be able to reach them through a certain channel, and that's where everything really clicks. And you might have multi channels or multi audience, but you have like just essentially one main brick that sort of nails down the business. Or does it actually look more like where you have multiple? Is it like 20, 20, 20, 20 5 times where you have five audiences, each kind of equally distributed, all equally sharing sort of like importance? Or is it really going through and searching and searching and searching and essentially striking gold in one place where, okay, boom, I found that all my customers are middle-aged men between the ages of 30 and 31, and they sit at TV on Wednesday nights to watch. And the way I reached them was I put a TV ad, and that's how I got all my customers. Is it ever that specific, or do you see that it's a little bit more multi-channel, multi-audience, multi-timing even?
Yeah. So again, my answer is going to be related a lot to the stage of the company. When you're starting off, the target audience can be very, very narrow, very narrow. Sometimes, as you said, people like males aged 30 through 40 from a very, very specific area in the United States. That very well might be the case. That depending on the type of product, type of company, that very well might be the case, and that's really fine. because when you are very early stage, you're not trying to get as many customers as you want. You're trying to find that product market fit. You're trying to find a product that fits a specific market.
Got it.
And it's good to have that market be narrow because it makes it easier for you to fit the product to that market. So that's actually really good. And then I will try a few audiences, but try to stick to one, maybe two, depending on the size of the target audience, etc. You do want to have it big enough to be able to sustain a business and to be able to get you to the milestones you need to grow. So you don't want it to be too small, but you also don't want it to be too big, because that will mean that it's going to be very difficult for you to build a product. Usually, early stage, you don't have a lot of resources. You might have just 2, 3, 4 developers. You're not going to be able to build anything that fits a large distributed audience.
I see.
So yeah, when you are trying to get to a growth state of mind, when you already have that product market fit, and you are really just now you feel you have a good product, you want to get to as many new audiences as possible, and you have the development capacity to and the support and the sales and everything, the
Yeah.
entire capacity to support that, then you might want to try a few channels at the same time. And if a few of them hit, then that's amazing.
Okay, got it, got it.
Yeah.
That's actually really interesting because I think when I reflect on what you just said, it sort of reminds me like Paul Graham I think said this. It's like better get 100 people who love you than millions of people who like you, and relating to the impact of like the the evolution of a product. Yeah, when you get that small group of people, you can actually focus on them, and their enthusiasm then generates that momentum.
Yeah.
Coming from another angle too, which is I think a myth. A lot of companies I find that they target a specific audience in terms of like a geography or like an age range or like a generation or something. Do you find it's this is something that we went through, right? At first, we're thinking, all right, we want to expand, right? And when we expand, we think about different places outside of where we live. Um,
Yeah.
but I realized that might be a myth because it seemed like it was better to actually target a person who shares the same problem. And then that's naturally just global rather than a person who is specifically from a specific country. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Uh, yeah, a little bit. So it again depends on the product. If it's a general digital product that approaches a large segment of the pop, if it's a very basic product, let's say if it's a WhatsApp
Mm,
or something along those lines, maybe I can get on board with just trying to get as many people from everywhere as possible. Um, it depends a lot on your marketing strategy and your marketing capacity, because when you're marketing to different people and when you're targeting a problem, it doesn't mean that your messaging can be the same everywhere. And it also depends a lot on your strategy, because if you are, for example, trying to get, if you're building a social network, it obviously wouldn't make a lot of sense to get two people from Bali, one from Singapore, one from Israel, and a couple of people from the States.
yeah.
It's not that interesting. You're going to want to narrow it down to a specific city or neighborhood
Mm,
for people for people to engage with each other. Um, so it depends a lot on the product. It depends a lot on how similar those. It's basically how similar I think they are. If you are building an email for CEOs, then you would need to kind of understand if a CEO in India is more similar to a CEO in the United States then the CEO in the United States is similar to, for example, a tech CEO in India and a tech CEO in the States versus a tech CEO in the States and a retail CEO
Yeah.
in the States. Like it's basically which are the segment of customers that have enough in common that you can approach them with the same messaging, the same language, the same everything, and for it to still be relevant for them. And you don't always know that. For example, you might want to approach, for example, tech CEOs, but you have a country where, like in Israel, everybody in tech does everything in English. In Russia, they don't.
Mm.
For example, so if you were to target them with ads in English, they might not be that interested in it just because of cultural reasons.
Got it.
And I think that's also a part of the reason that geography matters. You don't always know how, like, if it's going to be culturally the same to approach them. In in some places, humor is a lot more important. In other places, value is a lot more important. In some places, you're going to want to sell a dream and a vision. In some places, you are going to want to concentrate on ROI. Um, so that's, I think that is a good reason to kind of segment geographically by default.
Mm-hmm.
And you also just never know what other types of unknowns you have when you're targeting unknown geographies.
That's right.
So, for example, yeah, you might have GDPR, and you might have a new GDPR they just issued in China or wherever, and you might have other types. So, whenever you want to go into a new market, you might have a competitor that just 100% controls that specific market, and you are just wasting your time. And you might have regulations that you are unaware of, like specifically for for the property rental market. That's a huge issue because you have so many regulations in so many different countries and even cities. Like even New York has different regulations than LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you definitely want to segment those types of things by geography as well.
Definitely. Okay. Okay. Got it. So there's no one answer, but it is a combination of being able to be local with, like, let's say, an underlying um, human need that's as universal as possible. Um,
Mhm.
one last question before I go back to all of that, which is, like, in the quest to find your first customer, um, how much energy do you remember spending on that versus, like like if you were to, like, say, budget energy and resource, right? And you were to say, all right, for my first customer, that felt like it took 50% of all the energy and resource to find, and the next 10 were just like zero, like $10, 10%, and then the next 100 was almost insignificant. Does it always seem that way, or is it like boom, like first customer came relatively quickly, and then because when I reflect back on what you said about, like, product market fit, it feels like it should just happen, right? Um, but is that after you've spent quite a, like, you after you find a gold mine, you should get rich, right? But finding the gold mine is sort of like the that's the whole endeavor in the first place, right? Is
Yeah.
it a little bit like that, or is it more like, it's like 10% on the first one, a few percent more on the next one, then it just kind of like goes after that?
Uh, that's a difficult question. I think that I'm trying to think back on my experience in a couple of early stage companies. Um, so if again it um, I'm sorry that that's my answer for everything, but it depends. Yeah, it's not a business that you can
Answer.
always just, yeah. I wish we can just like put a formula through everything and get the right answer, but it has so many variables always. If you're doing an enterprise product, finding that first customer might be difficult. And if you're not a part of that market, if you are not a if you don't have a lot of personal connections in the enterprise industry, it's going to be extremely difficult to get that first customer
Right.
if you're doing enterprise well, where sales cycle can go anywhere between 3 and 6 months,
Yeah.
and even trying to get them to have a free trial is not an easy task at all. So that's going to be very complicated unless you have very strong connections. Um, Assuming that you're building something that you are passionate about, that you know well, that you understand well, that you have people around you that know that, and that you're building something that's needed. Um, yeah, if you are acting as a solo entrepreneur, you're going to be spending quite some time, hopefully, trying to get customers, and that's fine. Um, I wouldn't put it in percentage because acting as an entrepreneur, you basically work about 300% of the time. So like marketing can be that's like marketing can be a full-time job that only takes like a third of your time, for example. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah.
Throughout most of my career, I actually acted as a lead or senior product manager in companies that had like CEOs and marketing people that had to deal with that. So I wouldn't be able, like, we just had people do that full time. As an entrepreneur, a two-time entrepreneur, yeah, it's you spend time getting to talk to. It's not even getting customers. It's not separate from building a product. I don't separate building the product
Yeah.
from selling it. It's
Yeah.
basically your job is to talk to potential customers, both, and it's two reasons. Like, you want to understand what the problem is, you want to understand what solution can be built to fit that issue, and then you can sell to them
Yeah.
basically. But it's not additional work, it's just another layer on top of the same exact work. Even if I had customer lining up, I would still have the same number of conversations
Yep.
in early stages with a lot of different potential customers.
That makes
So
sense. That makes a lot of sense, sir. What you just said actually triggered. Yeah, I believe that quick iteration between hearing what is being said and then being able to show you this is what I did. That is actually what it is. It is the same role in early stages, and it's best to have as
yeah.
few communication barriers between that. And that's actually goes to Aldo. Okay, perfect timing, Aldo. Over to you again, Aldo.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the question. I think my question is related to the last question. So it's about the finding the click of the product market fit. So it for product market fit is always like when your product click with the customer, but and also it's about the feel that you already fitted. So when do you think is that is the sign of the product market fit, and when do you think like I already know my market fit, and I will stop finding it. When do you think you feel that that ultimate product market fit, sir?
um, yeah so product market fit is only important as what it gives you. It's a framework basically of helping you promote. It's not a specific milestone that, okay, I just hit product market fit. It doesn't matter all that much. It's a way of looking at things. the main reason that it helps me, at least, to think about product market fit is in order to reduce the scope of the market. Basically, that's the main way that the idea. It's basically the entire thing here of thinking about MVPs, thinking about product market fit, thinking about all of those things. They're just frameworks that help you promote your business, basically. And the only thing that matters is not if you have it, is what it does for you as part of the larger process. Um, Product market fit helps me define a specific market, and know that I'm not going to be unfocused and not going to try to get everything at once, which is so common when you start. It's just so common. So many startups. Like I've worked with like 4 startups. I advised a lot of, like, consulted a lot more other startups, and when they don't have product market fit, they often just try to get whichever customers they can, even if they are vastly different from one another, even if the development requirements are completely different. Uh, and and that is when I can pull out the product market fit um, phrase and tell them, like, you're not going to be able to get product market fit because you are trying to attack too many markets, and there is no way you can build a product that meets. For example, one customer needs to have a service with an API, the other one needs a full-blown dashboard. If you are trying to give with very limited resources both a very well documented API and a very, very high quality dashboard, you are just never going to be able to build something that fits both,
Got it.
Yeah,
for
okay.
example.
I think that's very wise. That product market fit is just something little for something more bigger, right? So I think this will be like my last question. What do you think that we have to keep in mind that when we're trying to find our product market fit?
I think it's it's a spark, basically. It's that whenever you, at least for me, it's not something that I even measure to
Okay.
begin with. It's that when I talk to this type of people of a specific segment, when I talk to them about what I'm doing or about what I intend to be doing and to build, they are excited about it. Like, I think, Jing, you mentioned earlier, like, it's better to have 100 happy customers than a million okay ones, or you put it better than I did, but I think the same idea applies. You want to find those people that will be very, very excited. If you can get people very excited, assuming that they also meet a few other criteria. For example, like, as I said, the market is big enough, they have the money to pay in a sustainable way, you have a business model, etc., etc. But if you have those few requirements in place, and they fit the profile of a good customer in a good market, then you just wanted to find the people that are excited about what you're doing. And if they're excited enough, as I said before, if they're excited enough to complain and to talk about you with other people and to call you or to email you twice a week about questions and support issues, and if they're just engaged enough, that will be something good to base a business on, I think.
Thank you, sir. That's very very wise. So I think let's go. Okay, all right. Okay, Jim.
Oh well, actually, wait. Let me. I've asked a few questions already. We can go over to Aldo. I'll let you redirect the questions to some of the people in the room now.
Yeah. If is there anyone who have the question? I think let's roll from Rizal.
I think my question is already answered previously, so all good for me.
Okay, thank you, Rizal. Maybe to Gani,
All good. All good.
to Hasbi.
All good. Thank you, Aldo.
Okay, thank you, Hasbi. And okay, let's go back to you, Jing.
Okay, fantastic. What I got out of this is actually some interesting things, guys. So a lot of times, I think when we've had product complaints before, and instead of hearing it as a complaint, we should actually hear that as kind of like I guess when a baby cries to a mother, right? It's like saying, "Hey, look, I need you, I need you," and that is actually a good thing rather than being a negative thing, and that should be cherished rather than avoided. So that part is actually pretty revealing, and that's a good way for us to reprioritize what these signals are actually needing. The one thing I had a funny thing, which was when we started our journey, it was very similar to Guesty's journey, right? So we saw that
Mhm.
there was we were working with these property owners, and they would come to ask us. They would complain because our services were not up to speed. And the reason our services were not up to speed was because they would call at all different hours asking, "Hey, what time is my guest coming?" Right? And so we thought, all right, don't ask us, ask our product, right? So we invented a product, and we thought, okay, we're going to get this product to help us to deal with our property owners. But then we discovered that the property owners don't want to use it. They would just rather call us, and
Yeah.
we're sort of like, So we kept on getting really stuck on that idea. Why don't they just use the product, right? Like, just use the product, and it has everything you need there. But instead, they would just go to WhatsApp, or they would call us on the phone, or they would bump us on the street and say, "Hey, look, can you fix that thing on my finance report?" And we tell them it's in that application I built for you. Uh, so when you have a situation, I guess, where you've built a product for yourself, actually, to make it easier for yourself, but you want the counterparty to use it because you believe it would actually make it easier for them to use, and you're sure that if they start using it, it would just solve all their problems. Then what do you do? like you have this thing. It could work if they actually engage with it, um, or have we made the false assumption that we shouldn't even be building products for people like this? And maybe we just can't accept that we've made this mistake. I mean, like, from your perspective, where does that lie, and what can be done?
So that's an absolute classic, of course.
Good.
Happened to me countless times. Uh, a lot when I just started off. It happened almost all the time. So first of all, I want to say I love the baby crying to its mother metaphor. I'm like totally stealing that, and I'll be using that for other things.
Sure.
So thank you. I did want to have a caveat there where you want to know that those customers are complaining because they are engaged and involved, and not just because they're assholes. Like, you don't want to be like, some customers are just assholes, and it doesn't mean that they're bad customers, but it also doesn't automatically mean that they are good customers because they are complaining a lot.
Right.
So make sure that you have the good type of complaints,
Yeah.
and not just the assholes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one thing. Now, in getting to your question about the product, you need, like, if people are not using your product enough, um, it can, and I mentioned it's a classic because it happens a lot, and it can always mean one of two things. Either you can't get them to onboard for some reason. It can be a user experience issue. It can be a marketing issue. Maybe they didn't even log into the app, whatever. That's one thing. Or it can be that they just don't need it. And you need to understand, like, whenever you're building something, and again, you are building it to validate an assumption, and then that validation falls through,
Mm.
then you need to understand if the issue was in the assumption or in the experiment, basically.
Mhm.
Both are optional. Maybe the assumption was false. Maybe just the experiment wasn't the right experiment.
Got it.
I usually do that by going and talking to a few of those people that keep calling, and and tell them like what. And I've done that actually like quite a lot, trying to ask them like, I built this very very beautiful app for you, which I worked with 5 developers over the course of the past year, and you are telling me that you need it, but you still don't use it. Why the hell are you not using it? Um, you will find out interesting things. Sometimes, oh yeah, someone told me about it a few months ago. I forgot about it. Yeah, can you send me a link? That's one reply. Sometimes it's, yeah, I just don't have the time to learn this new app. It's too complicated. I don't have the time. I just want to call you. That's another thing. Sometimes the person is just a little bit older. They don't like apps. Like like they don't like apps the way I don't like TikTok. Basically, I don't understand it.
I didn't understand
If you I don't understand it. I don't know why people are using it. Even if you send me something and you say, "Oh, you go check out my new TikTok," I would just say, "Can you please put it on Facebook? Like I'm an old person. Can you just put it on Facebook and then I will check out your video?" So sometimes that's the reason. And you go, you talk to them, you understand why they didn't use it,
Yeah.
and then if you feel that your assumption was solid enough after talking to them, you can try to make a new experiment.
Got it.
Yeah, sometimes like for your example, they don't need an app. They need a chatbot, which is a lot easier to build. They can send a WhatsApp, get a response. That's it. They have it in 2 seconds. They don't need to learn a new interface or whatever.
Got it.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason you want to build smaller experiments, so that you don't build a full-blown app and then decide that, oh, they just needed a small chatbot I could have built in basically 3 or 4 days. So
Wait, you can't build chatbots on WhatsApp now, right? Because they don't share their API, or have they have? Is that
yeah, they started doing some things with it. It's still not completely open, but you do have some chats on WhatsApp right now.
interesting?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they've opened it up a couple of years ago to specific businesses. It's WhatsApp business, but it's not for everybody just yet. But the same can go for Facebook Messenger or
Okay.
or whatever. Yeah,
Got it.
email.
Okay, well, I'm glad that doesn't just affect us, because it sometimes feels like it, right? It's like, what is wrong with these people? Like, why did you ask me to
Yeah.
do this and then not use it? Like, what is up with that? I mean, I've done what you said, so so be happy.
This is building products 101. Like at its core, this is product development. Is you build it, they don't use it. Why? That's like 90% of the work I done. So
We thought 90% of it was actually building things.
yeah, you just want to make sure that your failures are small enough so that you learn quicker, and you didn't just throw away stuff that you've been building for 6 months, which I have. But
That's
you
why we're
want to make
talking
sure
to
that you're
you.
building stuff. Yeah, yeah. You want to make sure you build something small enough so that if your assumption was false, you can just like change it quickly, throw it away, and start something else quickly,
Mm,
instead of building something completely mega enormous and then it can fail. Yeah.
got it, got it, got it. It's actually kind of like our perfection of Eric Ree's technique is to add professional networking to it. If you talk to somebody who's built it before, then maybe you'll learn faster that way, and you can mitigate those blast radiuses. Thank you. Back to Aldo for, I guess, conclusion and ending remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Barner, for the discussion. I think that was a very interesting discussion and very delighting for us to get this knowledge about the product market fit. So maybe something that you want to understand from us, maybe some questions.
Uh, Yeah, I would love to know like just what you guys are working on right now.
Okay, back to Jing.
Basically, like, what are your challenges right now?
Okay, maybe Jing would answer it as our
Sure.
CEO.
Okay, so in the sort of the big picture, we're trying to do Amazon Web Services for hospitality. So if you think of like what Amazon Web Services did for hotel or for websites, you can now have a website without having to buy servers and fully upgrade it, do all the infrastructure thing, right? So what if like you could build a hotel and you don't need to actually do you could sort of piecemeal all your components together. Don't need to hire a revenue manager, you have a revenue management service. You don't need to hire a marketing team, you have marketing service, and so on and so forth. So you can kind of like think of the top of the stack and build all your way. At some point, you probably still need essential services like cleaners, people that serve food, all that. And,
Yeah,
we don't go to that level necessarily, but let's say right above that, from like any guest interface side all the way up to the other sides, I think there's open opportunities. So once you have like I think a this concept of service, there's a way to innovate that. There's something to actually improve upon year after year, and that makes your properties more competitive than somebody who is keeping the same general manager for 10 years, right? Who's not innovating.
yeah,
So the hardware I think is plentiful in the hospitality industry, but the software, I mean the actual management services is rare and it's difficult to access and it's unsteady too. And it's difficult because sometimes, like the right managers don't want to go to certain countries to actually bring the whole family and live there. So this idea of essentially creating a service cloud, I guess, is what we want to pursue. That's our big whatever idea. Our current challenge is we're on baby steps, right? I think we're trying to find. We're talking to developers, and they're like, I don't get that. I don't need that right now. We're talking to people. It's a little bit of a patchwork. It's a little bit of a patchwork. So we go to China. Most people in China, what do you do with apartments? They go like, yeah, we take a lot of apartments, and it's all kind of managed by one of these companies that do exactly what you do, right? They sort of like,
mhm,
we have turned our apartment complex into a hotel, but without hotel overhead. And I'm like, great, so we can apply that here in Southeast Asia. But like you said about enterprise clients, they kind of have their own agendas, and they're very, very
mhm.
sort of like high momentum into high inertia. So getting them to pivot off course is, I guess we just haven't found one yet, right? So that's on goes on the journey. Product, I think we have a few things. We have a CRM. We have a way of essentially predicting prices now through this really cool algorithm. We have forecasting technology. So we have this suite of services, but once again, it's a little bit too sophisticated for your homeowner who's like, yeah, okay, that's kind of cool to have, but I don't think they even realize what it means. And the
Yeah,
people who do understand it, they don't understand how management can be delivered without people. So we have that kind of gap right now, and we're trying to narrow that gap. So that's why we asked about product market fit. It seems like the people who would appreciate it, they don't are I don't know, they don't have to understand this idea of management kind of delivered as a service, or maybe we need more time. Maybe video conference doesn't actually get that across to them. So maybe we need to change that channel. And in other ways, I think we have maybe something a little bit too sophisticated for our traditional customers, which have been mainly people who are owning single units or a few holiday homes. So that's been the sort of the journey, and I remember Guesty actually quite well. I remember the founders. I think one was Amin. Um, I met them at
Amyad.
Oh yeah. He came up to me. He knew exactly who I was back in the first Airbnb host conference in San Francisco. So we were getting our tote bags, and he was like, "Jing, Bukit Vista." I was like, "Yeah." And back then we were small. We were like I think like three people back then, right?
Mhm.
And he already did his research. He found out about my company, and he was like, "Yeah, you should use Gusty." I was like, "It sounds like you're my competitor, actually. Why should I use you?" He was like, "No, no, 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 no." And basically, he was already a few years ahead. He was already working on bigger, which is what we were
Yeah,
doing now, right? Most recently. So I found out about Gusty, and I was actually quite impressed with how Gusty faced similar growth issues, right? And of course, you guys got funding too, so that was also really cool. But yeah, the location, not in Silicon Valley, not in Montreal, not where traditional vacation rental companies are growing. Yeah, and I would say I'm pretty impressed actually. He thought a lot about the culture of the company, thought a lot about what it means to I think build good teams, and most of the people we met from Guesty have been fairly impressive actually. So yeah,
Definitely.
that's where we are, and that's how. And that's crazy. Now that I think about it, that first time I met him was I think it was less than 5 years ago, actually. So yeah, we both have grown quite a lot in that time.
Yeah, a long way since then. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a little bit about us. Okay, back to
Okay, sounds like a fascinating challenge.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, hopefully,
Yeah, sure.
we're up for it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Barner, for your time. I think let's take a photo. I will screenshot it and maybe and we'll post this fruitful discussion to my.
Thumbs up for Guy! Yay!
Nice to meet you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
Good luck.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Barner.
Thank you, guys.